I started my flight training. I just asked my parents that I want to become a pilot, and then
What's up, what's up, what's up? Welcome back to India's number one pilot podcast. And this is episode 41 now.
Yes.
Matter of the fact, it sometimes makes us feel like we have discussed pretty much everything. So, so if you haven't watched previous episodes, then go ahead and watch those. It is like 1 hour each episode, meaning 40 hours of educational content that there is in all those episodes. And for sure, if you do pay attention to those episodes, you will have learned a lot from those episodes of Pilot Podcast.
Absolutely. And they are information rich content, and that will really help you in making a decision of first whether to become a pilot or not. Secondly, if you have decided, then what a way to follow as per your situation, considering finances as well as flight training.
yes, and for someone who is starting from scratch, they would not know much about aviation. What is the path to follow? Because I feel like when I started my pilot journey, I made a couple of mistakes during my training. Like, what should I do first? What should I do later? So that steps which a person has to take, that is nowhere mentioned properly. So if they have watched this 40 episodes, we have shared our story, like how we went on becoming a pilot, how you went on becoming a pilot back in 2008. So they could always compare the journey, and with every episode which we discussed, there is some or the other update in the process or some rules and regulation changes, so we address those on a timely basis as well.
Correct.
So for them it becomes very easy. They just come to the podcast, they just watch it, make notes about it, and then if they have any queries, they can always reach out to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
And as you know, the amazing news that is Air India Airbus 350, the
Yes.
first Airbus 350 has arrived in India, and it's pretty exciting for Indian aviation market.
Yeah.
And it is pilots, we always look forward to flying wide bodies, right?
Mhm.
And even if you are on narrow body, then you have that one dream that, okay, one day I want to fly this airplane. So that Airbus 350, this is the first one, but as everybody knows that Air India has ordered about 40 Airbus 350s. So
40.
those will be
Wow.
delivered in due course of time in
Mhm.
coming few years. So yes, if there is a vacancy, but initially definitely they will be flying Airbus 350 on domestic routes, because whenever a new type of aircraft comes to a particular country, then there are many things need to be tested.
Mhm.
And rather than testing those on international routes where it can cause regulatory issues and to deal with the other nations, it's better to operate, and that's a regulatory norm by DGCA. So that new variant and the new type of aircraft is allowed to operate in Indian aviation itself, in India itself, on domestic routes for stipulated period of time. And after successful operations, then that aircraft is scheduled to operate on the international routes. So that's how it is. And plus to get the international EDTO clearance, that is the extended diversion time operations, where the aircraft has to fly over sea for beyond 60 minutes of flight time with one engine and up. So in that case, you require certain number of hours of that engine without any in-flight shutdown history on that particular engine in that nation, so that the approval can be granted by DGCA to that aircraft and to that airline. So those things need to be tested, because currently Airbus 350 is the one which has the maximum EDTO approval given
that
by
so? Okay.
Airbus.
Mhm.
Yes, it is
Wow.
370 minutes.
370 minutes.
Nice.
Wow, honestly, nice.
300.
That's pretty good.
Yes. So that's how it is. So because of that, once they test the operations within India, then they will be flying international.
So EDTO varies airline to airline, airplane to airplane, right?
Engine to engine.
Engine to
Yes.
engine as well.
Yes. Even
So if say Go Air has a specific engine and other airline having A320 has the same engine, not necessarily they both have same EDTO.
no,
Right.
because the maintenance of that airline is also matters, and if the maintenance standards are not good, then they will not get EDTO approval. So
Right.
that is how it is. So if one engine, let's say for example, Pratt and Whitney has a certain EDTO approval of 90 minutes, the another engine, which is LEAP engine of Airbus 320, will have another approval of, the EDTO, the Airbus, on the same aircraft Airbus 320, but on another engine, LEAP 1 Alpha, will have approval of about 120 minutes of EDTO approval. So
Understood.
every aircraft may not have the same approval of EDTO, but it depends on the engine and its number of in-flight shutdown rate in previous years.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Correct. Right.
And the airline. And many things are there in that.
Yeah.
It's not only engine, it's about the aircraft. All the systems are, checked over time, like air conditioning, electrics, cargo fire suppression, fire extinguishing system, all of that. And then based on that, the approval is granted.
Right. So just explain real quick what is EDTO to be precise. Like ETOPS, EDTO, what's the
Okay.
difference and how it is like?
So ETOPS is a terminology which used to be in use earlier, but it is replaced by EDTO because the difference being ETOPS is only for twin engine airplane and EDTO is for 2, 3 and 4 engine all the airplanes. Okay, so here what is it? Let's say for example, if you are flying over sea as a passenger, you might have that feeling, okay, you are flying over sea for such a long time. What if something goes wrong in the plane?
Yeah, there
Okay,
is no
let's say
land.
For example,
Oh, yeah.
There is engine fail or else there is any kind of system failure. Okay, see, in aviation, you don't have to be worried and get really scared of those things or thinking of it, but you need to have a backup plan, what needs to be done if that happens, and act accordingly. So when the aircraft is designed, that time itself these things are taken care of. But when we talk about this flying over area where there is no suitable airport to land, in that case, if you are beyond 60 minutes of flight time, okay, with,
So from the airplane, there is a radius circle of 60 minutes, right?
not from the airplane, from the airport. Okay.
Okay.
So from the airport, where you can make a safe landing, that is called as suitable airport. Okay. So around that, corresponding to 60 minutes into, you just multiply it by this speed of the airplane with one engine and operator, because we are considering it for failure case, right? So that corresponding distance, let's say for example, if it is 500 nautical mile, just a ballpark figure for you to understand.
Yeah.
So around that airport, you draw a radius of 500, you draw a circle having a radius of 500 nautical mile. That way, from departure to destination, whichever are suitable airports around that, you draw those circles, and the aircraft path has to pass through that 60 minutes of circles.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you are flying over sea, let's say over Atlantic Ocean or over Pacific Ocean for that matter, which is like, Trans-Pacific or Transatlantic, for them, flying like that will cover a lot of distance, much more than
The great
what
circle.
you can cover in a shortest, distance between those two places. So you end up covering more distance, you end up burning more fuel, which is not very economic for the operation
Consuming
of the airline.
more time as well.
Yes. So if it is found out over time that this aircraft is very reliable, it is airworthy and the engines are quite reliable, they don't fail over time, and it is proven over time they have not failed over so many operating hours, and even systems are quite reliable. So in that case, instead of that 60 minutes, depending on the aircraft type, you can be even at 120 minutes from the suitable airport, or 180 minutes, or 240 minutes, or like in Airbus 350, it can be even more than 300 minutes from the suitable airport. So if the circle is bigger, now you can, around those suitable airports, if you draw the circles, now from London to New York, you can just go straight without passing and going from over the poles.
So higher
closer
the
to camp
ETOPS time, bigger the circle
Yes,
is.
higher is the ETOPS time, bigger the circle. So that's how it is. So
Right,
Airbus
right.
350 is the earlier, before Airbus 350, it was Boeing 777, which had a highest ETOPS time. Now the terminology is EDTO. So for twin engine airplane, it is 60, beyond 60 minutes you need EDTO approval. And within 60 minutes if you fly, you don't need any approval. You can fly anyway. That's
So,
not a problem. And for 3 and 4, it is 120 minutes. 3 and 4 engines, because they have anyway more number of engines, more redundancy. So for them, if their flight is beyond 120 minutes from suitable airport, then you need EDTO approval.
Correct. Nice. So if an airline has approval for say 180 minutes, so the circle will be drawn for 180 minutes and the airplane has to pass through that circle, correct?
Yes.
Understood.
Yes.
Matter of the fact, we haven't been trained for this yet. So when does this training happen?
So the earlier there used to be ground training, there used to be simulator training, and there used to be a flight check also. Now all of those things are not there. Now
No,
there is a ground training.
There was
Now the sim check and line check is not there. Now there is only ground training, and then you are approved to operate.
Oh, so ETOPS training did happen in your ground
Yes,
classes?
so for us, there was a separate session for EDTO. So
Correct.
they explain what is EDTO, what is
Correct.
ETOPS, how does it affect the operations,
Correct.
and how important it is in flight planning or route planning.
Correct.
So yeah, we were taught. So some aircrafts, let's say the A320, 321, some has a clearance of 90 minutes, some have 120. So it depends on the aircraft as well, and the type of engine as well, as you mentioned.
Correct.
So I think in the airline ground training, every topic is covered.
Right.
But it's such a short time that we have to study as well on ourselves, because each topic is introduced to us, explained to us, and how does it affect the operation.
Correct.
And then we have to read through the manual and see like what exactly it is, any detail. We have to understand the company policy for it as well.
So once you learn it in theory and then you operate it in flight, you can relate it.
Yes, definitely.
What is written.
Correct.
Only by reading you will understand up to some extent, but when you actually do it, you will understand it much better and completely. So the captain who you fly with, he might explain you if you ask some questions about it. So accordingly, then you can, it will make more sense.
Absolutely. Yep. The same goes for DGCA exams as well, right?
Yes.
Like you learn theory first and then go for flying. Flying is way, easier to understand, and why something happens. You have the reasons for it.
Correct.
Absolutely.
But in flying also, when you experience stall, okay, so if you studied the theory, you would understand why is the aircraft stalling and stuff, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then what actions you would take to overcome the stall.
The procedure to recover
Yes.
from it.
Yes.
Yeah, you have
So
an
procedure
idea.
is one thing and theory is another thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes,
both things,
yes.
if you study and go,
Absolutely.
then flight would be super easy,
Right.
rather than
Correct.
going for a flight unprepared and then
Right.
coming and
Correct.
reviewing the lesson.
Yeah. See, when you are actually experiencing the stall, you are not thinking about the airflow being separated.
Yes, yes.
You are thinking about the procedure to recover, right?
Correct.
And then when you do it once, twice, thrice, okay, like once you do in introductory flight, then you do in the review, and then you do it in the check, right? You do it those many times, then you instill that skill of recovering a stall, right?
Yes.
Now you know how to recover a stall. Now you are knowledgeable, you are skilled to recover through it. So only doing it 3 times might not be enough experience of doing it, but over a period of time, that experience is also gained, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's yeah. Having said that, like if you have certain knowledge of that particular thing, why it could happen. Let's say, for example, you take off in winter when the temperature is low, and then you experience high engine vibration. Okay, so you have at the back of mind, okay, it could be because of icing. Okay, and then you follow the checklist. Definitely, you follow the checklist. So that also has certain
for
things
sure.
mentioned.
For sure.
So icing might be suspected, and that can cause
Because knowing what is exactly happening helps in creating a mental model of the situation.
correct.
Unless you know that how a stall happens, you do not have that perception of building that mental model
Correct.
of you going through a stall.
Correct.
So that is, each and every part is a building block if we look
Correct.
at it. Definitely, no
First
doubt.
is groundwork. Thereafter, you
Sure.
have to really know the procedures,
Yeah.
and then you implement it, so
Yeah.
you can reproduce better in the cockpit.
No matter of the fact, I don't think any part of aviation studies is unnecessary part. Like
Correct.
pretty much all the parts
Yes.
of
Correct.
aviation training are important. There are no chapters left to option in like
Yes.
we used to in, I
Correct.
mean I used to in engineering.
Yeah, that. So, engineering, you just do previous year's papers and go. But here you have to study because this whole things would be actually be used during flying. I mean, the procedures we follow, right? So if you are, let's say you are reducing the throttle or you are changing the pitch angle, so that you should have an understanding of the theory. So it makes sense whatever procedure you're doing.
For
Correct.
Speaking about flight training, so what I believe is like when I started my flight training, I just asked my parents that I want to become a pilot, and then the Cadet Pilot program interviews around the corner. So I gave the interview, and then I was completely new to aviation. I wanted to become a pilot, but I haven't researched much, and I didn't know much about aviation. So the thing with me was that like when I got selected, I was asked to go for flight training since it was the first batch. But I knew about DGCA exams and the RTR, but they were like, okay, you can come back and always give the DGCA exams and the RTR, which was a big mistake, to be honest. But right now, if someone is going for flight training, it is a must,
Right.
though it is not compulsory, but it is a must to clear DGCA exams and the RTR before even thinking about flight training.
For sure.
And also the medicals, class 1 and class 2 of the medicals has to be done before you go abroad for your flight training or before you start your flight training in India as well.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yes, so that was one of the mistakes which I made. So everyone has some or the other thing which they haven't done correctly.
Correct.
So right now, if someone is looking forward to become a pilot, looking forward to start their pilot training, they should start with their DGCA ground school first,
Correct,
and then RTR, and then
Correct.
the flight training.
Correct.
So once I was done with my training, as the CNTAA had the on-demand module,
Yeah.
so it was very easy for me to sit for like 6 to 8 hours every day and complete it in a span of a month.
Yeah.
So
that was
so it was, I guess, in the month of November. And
Yes,
I
yes.
came back, and then
November.
the exam was around
2021.
November of 2021. 2020, yes,
November
yes.
2020. That's when
Yes,
you
and
did your
Yes,
Yeah.
I started, and then the exam was around December and 24th or something, 25th.
Yeah.
So yeah, because of the on-demand module, it was
Absolutely.
easy, because I have tried reaching out to a couple of people to teach me like a crash course, but everyone was like, it's not possible for you to do it in a span of a month. But then I called Nilay. Nilay is like, okay, we have started the on-demand, so you can
Right.
just go through it at your own pace.
Yep.
I was like, this is perfect for me. Then I started studying, and then I appeared for exam, and then I cleared. So that was
great.
that was really a great like on-demand module
Yeah. Yeah.
for anyone who is working, or anyone who is studying and wants to give their DGC exams side by side, wants to
Correct,
prepare
correct,
for their
correct.
DGC exams side by side.
Yep.
It gives them the freedom to learn whenever they want, because the course is available 24/7. There are online quizzes to help you understand the topic. Like, if let's say if someone scores, if I score less than 80% in those quizzes, I understand, okay, I haven't understood the chapter, I have to go through it one more time.
Absolutely.
So it's very good. It's very flexible course, which I would recommend to everyone if they are looking forward to start.
Yep. Definitely. No doubt about it. And also, see, the course is so well structured, and everything is there. Like you said, the quizzes, right?
Mhm.
If something goes wrong, there is an explanation underneath
yes.
each question. Like whatever the question that someone might have gone wrong with, there is an audio visual explanation. And beyond that, if someone has doubt,
Yes.
There. Yes. Yeah.
Also, one more thing, the way you studied was commendable.
Yes,
Like
absolutely.
30 days,
Thank
3
you.
papers is not.
Is
I mean,
commendable.
I did it in 3 months. Okay, 3 papers, no doubt. But 30 days is commendable. Man.
Yes.
Yep.
That's good. That's good. And
For sure. Yeah, so you are the living proof of like doing this in 30
Yeah.
days, right?
Yeah.
Like that is amazing. But you did have computer number beforehand, right?
Yes, computer
Yeah.
number I applied when I was leaving for the US, because
Right.
at that time they were like, okay, just keep the computer number in
Ready.
hand, so that
Mhm.
once you come back you have to give.
correct.
Absolutely, for sure. And then eventually, so Chintan studied from it. He
Yes.
loved CNTAA online on demand. And then we started because he was a CNTAA student, so his and Capt.Neha's communication was pretty often. And then we started meeting even more often in Mumbai. And then eventually now Chintan is part of Team CNT, core part of Team CNTAA,
Yes.
right? So yeah, I mean, we were friends in the US as well, no doubt about it. And we used to, but we were friends. Now we work also together, and we are colleagues in the airline. We are colleagues in CNTAA, and we are great friends as well.
Yeah.
Yes,
So it
that's
all
good. It's commendable
it all
to do
started
it in
when
one
we were in the US. So
Mhm.
we used to like Nilay had bought a drone, and then we used to shoot videos and
I know,
stuff.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So during training, when the COVID was there wasn't much flying happening. So at that time, we were learning how to edit videos. We were learning how to fly a drone, and then we used to
Correct,
shoot all
correct.
kinds of
Yeah.
videos and
Correct,
just
correct,
play
correct.
around.
There used to
Great.
be no traffic in those times, right?
Mhm,
Or anything. We'd just any evening we'd go out and then fly drones,
Correct,
take
correct,
some
correct.
shots, take some footages, go to some springs or something,
Right,
different
right.
lakes. And evenings in Florida are
Beautiful.
beautiful. It's
Yeah.
like sky is. I haven't seen a sky like that. Like especially in winters.
Yes.
Correct.
Actually, that happens because of those high altitude clouds, the cirrus clouds. Cirrus clouds combined with sunset is beautiful sight.
beautiful.
Like,
Correct, correct.
yeah. And then again, the pollution is lesser. It's relatively a low pressure area compared to Mumbai, Delhi, or so visibility is more. And
Correct,
that
correct,
that
correct.
feels nice. Right? Yeah, so that's about flying in the US and having fun in the evenings. Yeah,
Mhm.
fun within the boundaries of law and everything. Definitely.
So talking
But
about the
but you have a problem with US flying. So
I don't have a problem with flying in US. No, it's about
well, I
we were
think
talking about.
wherever anyone has done their initial part of training, those places are dear to them, right? Like
No, I didn't say I have a problem with flight training in US.
right.
We
Okay.
were talking about that general aviation in US. That's why I said.
Understood.
Mm,
Understood.
mm. So, what was something because of which you thought of doing your flight training in US?
Right. You'll take this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I was researching about flight training, US was in the top list because whenever I used to ask someone how's flying in the US, they would say it's one of the best. But there comes something, but is the budget. So if you have the budget for pilot training, go for US any day. Because US, if you see, they have such a big general aviation. So the infrastructure which they have for pilot training is immense. And if you speak about Florida, Florida has something around 450 airports just in Florida.
Okay.
So there are around 450 airports just in Florida. So whenever you take off, you have an airport around you. Okay, just as EDTO. There's no need to file an EDTO. Or like you just fly, you will automatically comply with the EDTO. That's how Florida is. And the infrastructure which you have and the flexibility which you have to fly the aircraft in Florida is immense. So whenever we used to fly solo, okay, so we used to file a flight plan online and then we used to go for a flight, and that was a matter of just 5 minutes. In 5 minutes you file a flight plan online, the ETC has already received your flight plan, they are working on your clearance. So once you are at the startup, once you ask for clearance, they know where you're going. You don't have to explain them where you're going. They'll directly give you the route and the flight level and you follow it.
Correct.
And when you land at another airport, there is an FBO, like fixed based operation, right?
Yeah.
There is an FBO where you have to refuel your aircraft. So you park the aircraft, you go inside, you refuel it, then they give you a receipt of the fuel, and you again file a flight plan and take the aircraft back to the school. So this process of entering a new airport, figuring out the taxiways, figuring out where is the location of the FBO, and then communicating with the ATC. So that is something which is new for me. Like because every time or every other day we used to go to a new airport, and if you go to a new airport during your learning stage, you learn a lot.
Correct.
And that too on a solo.
Correct.
So it's all on you, like the decisions which you make, which airport you are going, checking the weather, and each airport has we used to go on the IFR flight plan. So each airport,
for the most part,
for the most part. So each airport had the approaches, like ILS approach, VR approach. So we used to practice that as well.
Correct.
At the end of our solo, we were so confident in flying the aircraft. You wake up in middle of the night, you ask, okay, you have to go there, we'll file the flight plan 5 minutes, check the weather, take the briefing, and then head out.
Then
so we had to report around an hour before our departure at the flight school.
Correct.
But by the end, it was like everything was so we were used to that. That'll happen in 20 minutes, all the filing and everything. And then when we came here for the conversion and then realized that cross-country flight plan is a process that takes quite some time, right? Because how it is see, nothing is wrong. Things are different doesn't mean they're wrong. Like the process followed in India is efficient for India. The process followed in the US is efficient for US. There is nothing there is nothing wrong doing flight training from India either. And this is only how things work there. So there is an app or you can go on website. So how I used to do it was there was an app, 4Flight. Okay, now this 4Flight is the flight planning application. You put in all the details, pilot details, all the ICAO flight plan details. Okay, you submit, file. Now, if you pick up the IFR clearance within 2 to 3 minutes, your tower has the IFR flight plan filed. It's that.
Correct.
And I feel that'll happen in India too soon.
Eventually, yeah, it will happen. Yeah.
Because actually nowadays, if you look at it, India is pretty advanced
growing
and
at a fast pace.
Technologically, if we look at it,
Yes. So this is about the reason why you decided to choose US as your country for flight training.
For flight training.
So yes, US, the flight training quality is really good, and that is the reason why Florida is like hub of flight training. Many flight schools are there in Florida where the flight training takes place. But for a student's point of view, so many students ask this question that I'm getting this quotation from this flight school, this quotation from another flight school. So what do you think is the actual cost in the US for flight training, and what are the hidden costs, do you think?
So speaking about the cost of flight training, so when we compare it to India, both of them work on a different principle. So in India, mostly the focus is on the theoretical part, and practical part is also there. But at the end of your hour requirement, at the end of meeting the hour requirement, which is 200 hours, you get a CPL. But in US, there is theoretical exam, but most focus is on the practical part of the training. Unless a person has the skill to become a commercial pilot, he won't be getting a license, or he won't pass the check, right? So let's say when a student is going for flight training in the US, their fee structure would have a split up of everything, like what is included, what is not included. So make sure you go through that and refer it to something or someone who has already done their training from the US, because there are certain things which are a must for flight training.
Correct.
Like if you are flying on a Cessna, then you need a fuel jar to check a fuel sum jar to check the fuel, then a fuel stick to check the quantity of the fuel. So that all things are kind of little bit expensive in the US. So that all, if it's not included in the program, it can cost like $1,000-$2,000 additional.
Yeah, the headsets as well, right?
Yeah. Yes, the headsets as well.
Apart from that, the checks like PPL checks, IFR instrument check ride, commercial check ride, the cost of check ride is only included for one attempt.
One time, yes.
In case if the student ends up doing some error in that check, then he will have to, he's unsat for that check, and then he will have to again reappear.
What
for
is,
the check.
rather than framing it as what is included and what is not included, how it is anyone says, okay, that it'll cost say 55 lakh rupees, 65 lakh rupees, 60 lakh rupees, 50 lakh rupees. These are all estimates, okay? People take it like a fixed cost. It's not. It is an estimate, okay? Yeah, it'll be 10% plus minus something like that, okay? Or even maybe more. It depends on the competency of the student. How it is that is an estimated amount that it costs for the program to be completed. Now, every month you can take a ledger from the flight school that what you have been billed for, okay? What the flight school has billed you for. Billed.
What
okay?
is,
bill.
I didn't
Bill.
understand.
It's a bill.
Bill.
Billed you for.
Leisure as in?
Leisure as in
Statement.
Okay, so it's like a statement. Yeah, you go to the US. Now you have paid say $20,000 to the flight school. Now every month or every time you spend, it is like your bank account. You have given $20,000 to the flight school. Now say you have flown $20 hours. Say you have flown 20 hours in first month. each hour costs say $160, $170, whatever that it is. Now you have spent say 160, then $3,200 on your flying. Say instructor, the flight school say charges $20 an hour for the instructor. So $400 for the instructor. So now you have $3,200 plus your $400 for the instructor, which is $3,600, and then plus your say accommodation was $800, $900.
Yes, yes.
Now in that month you spent $4,300 out of you have paid $20,000.
Yep.
Okay, now your balance is whatever that
Yeah.
it is. As it goes low, you give it more.
Yeah.
Sometimes flight schools, what they do is they give a relatively discounted structure if you pay upfront. That is how it is. Now, while doing this, there is ACS. Okay, ACS is Airman Certification Standards. Okay, this has all the requirements to be fulfilled before getting a PPL. Okay, that your certification standards, what is gonna be in the PPL check ride. Now student has to build those competencies before applying for the PPL. Okay, now that'll have how many hours he needs to have, how many solo he needs to have, how many solo cross country he needs to have, whatever that it is he has to. Okay, if the student takes longer time than stipulated period of time, then say they said that PPL would have costed you $10,000. Now it costed $12,000. Why? Because the student flew more, had more hours.
Correct.
But in India, how it happens, like Chintan said, is most people finish CPL exactly at 200 hours. Now, that is how it is. So that is why there is variation in how much it costs for each individual in the
And
US.
in India, there is no separate charge for flight with instructor and a solo flight.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is the same cost.
Correct.
Oh.
Correct.
How many hours you do, depending on that, the amount from your account in the flight school gets deducted from
Okay.
there. So that's how it is.
Correct.
Because here instructor gets paid salary from the flight school and not from the student.
Okay.
So student doesn't, depending on the instructional hours, instructor doesn't get. It depends on the number of hours instructor does in that flight school.
Correct. And there it is both. Like they
There.
get a basic pay plus flying hours pay.
Correct.
I mean, they
Correct.
would be same like airline pilots. Minimum pay would be say 20 hours, 40
Right,
hours
right,
a
right.
month, or say 50 hours a
Correct,
month.
correct.
And beyond that is
Right.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
that
you-
is about US.
So you tell us,
Then-
why did you choose flying from India?
I chose in the sense that was the only option for me
Okay.
at that time. So there was, there were few colleagues, like many of them were going for their flight training in US. And that was much more expensive compared to that flight training in India. And dad were like, okay, I can, do for you the cost. I can afford the cost for your flight training in India, but not in US. That's going to be about 2 to 3 times more than what you would end up spending in India. And back then it was a big amount. So I did it. I started in the year 2006. So that time, I mean, those figures would be very small if you compare it now, because that back then, the cost of flight training, which was quoted by flight schools in US, was 18 lakhs.
Right.
Okay, 18 to 20 lakhs.
Well, the dollar
Whereas-
used to be 40 rupees, 35 rupees.
In 2007, the
Yeah.
dollar rate was 35 rupees. It had dropped actually. It was 50, which like $1 corresponded earlier to 50 Indian rupees. But Then in 2007, 6 end and 7, it had dropped to 35. So the cost was comparatively cheaper. So despite of that, he was like, no, it won't be possible. So like,
no, but
okay,
back in
India,
time, 18 lakh rupees was relatively a bigger amount.
20 lakhs.
Yeah.
And in India, it was costing approximately 7 to 8 lakhs.
Right.
So that was the reason. Now those figures would be very small compared to the flight training that costs in today's date. But it was big at that point of time. And so
This is just
that was
CPL.
one reason.
This is just CPL,
Yeah,
not
this is
type
CPL.
rating,
Not
not
type rating and
multi-engine.
Just single engine CPL, and with multi-engine it was approximately 12 lakhs for me.
Right.
So that was it, and that was one of the reason. But the flight school which I went to, then I decided to first clear the papers. But there was another hurdle that the new rule of DGCA had come up that you have to do flying for about 50 hours in order to appear for DGCA exams.
Okay.
So I just did those hours. I completed and then cleared the DGC exams, and then in 2008 completed rest of the flying.
Right.
So that was the reason I did it in India, and it was not bad, But if you compare the quality of flight training, yes, US is much better. Now, if you consider in India, then also there are certain good flight schools where you do get good quality of flight training. If you consider an airport which has certain navaids, or if you do instrument flying at those airports which have certain navaids, and then the learning experience is better with respect to instrument flying. And that's my opinion about the flight training. And here things are a bit different. In the sense that you don't have a roster properly. You have to go to the flight school every day, and depending on the instructors and the students on that particular day in the morning, they decide which students flying will happen, and accordingly it is scheduled. So you have to be present on daily basis there.
The biggest advantage of flying in India, I would say, I'm playing your side for a change, okay, is that once you are done with flying from an Indian flight school, you will certainly have met the DGCA requirement without fail.
Yeah, that's true.
Sometimes students don't know what requirements are there to be flown to get Indian DGCA license.
True.
They go to the US and then fly for, they do 100 hours solo. Then they've heard somewhere 100 hours solo is required. They do 50 hours cross country as well. Sure. But then those 50 hours cross country have to be more than 100 nautical miles. And
that means from the place of departure, the airport where you go to must be beyond the radius of 100 nautical miles.
Yeah.
This rule many students don't know when they actually go for flight training, and that's the reason why I advise them to do your DGCA ground class first, in which they will know these facts and then they go for flight training, so they will be aware of it. But if they just go for it, then after coming back, some of the students have suffered because they had to do those remaining hours because less.
That is an intricacy that differs from DGCA to FAAs. FAA says that if you touch down on an airport beyond 50 nautical miles, it is considered as a cross country. DGCA, you don't have to touch down. If you overfly an airport beyond 100 nautical miles, it is considered as a cross country. So those are the things. So now the point is, if you go 200 nautical mile plus airport and touch down and come back, you have met both the cross country requirements, FAA and DGCA. So when flying in the US, it is very important to be considering to meet both the requirements, FAA and DGCA. When you are flying from India, you are pretty much meeting only DGCA requirements, but you are surely meeting those because
Correct.
Yeah,
True.
that's how it is.
Yeah, so there are some students like who ask where they should do flight training, like one India or abroad. Then in abroad, which country? So it's very important to know that the country in which you are going to do your flight training, first of all, those requirements of Indian DGCA CPL are met with. That is one. Apart from that, like for example, if you do flight training from, there are people who are considering flight training in South Africa or Philippines. Okay, so
And UAE as well.
yeah, so the thing is, if you consider it in South Africa, South Africa has lot of flight schools where it is taking, first of all, way longer time. Secondly, the airports are not paved.
Many of them.
Many
Many
of them are not paved. And secondly, there are a lot of issues with respect to the number of airplanes are pretty less, number of instructors, the safety, all those issues are a
Yeah.
constraint. Apart from that, Philippines has another challenge, because people always look for cheaper flight school. So
Yeah,
in
South
cheaper
Africa
flight
is said
school,
to be cheap,
South
right?
Africa and
Yeah.
Philippines will be there, but the quality of the flight training is very, very
What do you
low.
mean by quality of flight training?
That means, first of all, the learning curve. Secondly, the time taken. Thirdly, the promises that they give, that they would say that flight training will be completed within a year or two. But for 1.5 to 2 years also, students don't finish PPL.
Right.
So that's how it is.
And in South
And-
Africa, if you look at the ground school, okay,
Yeah.
they have, I guess, how many papers for the JAR
15.
syllabus?
15.
Yes, so they have to study a lot for the ground school once they go there. So most of the time, I would say they
Those are
busy
not JAR,
preparing.
I think so, but those are like JAR or EASA.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah. So when they go to South Africa, like they are studying for those theory exams as well, which the portion is very huge. So yeah, and then they start their flying. Depends on the school's curriculum as well. So I think we were talking with one of the your friend who was doing training
Yeah.
in South Africa.
Yeah, he has done it through the Cadet Pilot program, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it took him 2 years.
Okay.
He just got back few months ago. Yeah. It took him 2 years. The unpaved runways, and then actually it's pretty much like clearing EASA papers. That's what it is. But then there are exceptions to it. Some flight schools for some programs have exception giving only 5 papers. And then other students, yeah, it is like that. So the cadets who go to South Africa, a flight school called what? Yeah, cadets who go to South Africa, they only appear for 4 papers or 5 papers. Rest of the students in the same flight school give 15 papers.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not too sure about like how many papers, but very sure about cadets have to give lesser number of theoretical examinations, because there are certain
Airline cadets.
airline cadets have to give, and that too, that it's like part 141 and
And
61
part 61.
kind of thing. So the people who are under that specific program, they have to give lesser papers. But that said, neither of us have flown from South Africa, so we don't know. But we train hundreds of students and we hear their experiences, and from those experiences we are sharing their experiences. Okay, that is what it is. Why it is attractive, the reason for which South Africa is attractive is it's said to be cheaper. Maybe it is. I don't know.
Yes, and sometimes it feels too good to be true as well.
True.
and then people fall trap of this cheap flight school and then get stuck there,
Correct.
and then it takes forever to complete their flight training and stuff. There are good schools in South Africa, but you have to
Yeah.
research a lot about them. And
The
whenever the school is good, it's not cheap,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, like the flight school, I guess, that is there for cadets is said to be okay, but it still operates on a unpaved runway. Yeah, grass runway. So yeah, why grass runway? Grass runway is no problem. You'll develop more skill. The problem is when it rains, grass runway goes muddy, and then until the runway dries, there is no flying happening. So it takes longer time. That is the problem with grass runway. Otherwise, flying on a grass runway is fun for sure.
Yes, and there are other countries as well to look
Then-
out for.
Yeah.
Like,
What
we
do you
have-
think about flight training in New Zealand?
Yeah, New Zealand is a pretty great place to train as well after US. One of the thing is to do your training in New Zealand, you require to give the IELTS exam. For US, it's not required.
Yeah.
You just have to give the interview. But
For
in New
visa.
Zealand, yes, the visa interview. And in New Zealand, you have to give. There's no visa interview. You have to give the IELTS exam. And as New Zealand is a Commonwealth country, you don't have to give the RTR as well.
Yeah.
So, good place to do training. There are a couple of good schools in New Zealand as well. And yeah.
Yes, considering the flight training in New Zealand, yes, Indian RTR they can exempt. Apart from that, the another thing they would need to keep in mind is about cross country, I would say, because it being a smaller country, you need to ensure that the place
Yeah.
you go to or the airport you go to
Yeah.
needs to be beyond 100 nautical mile from the place where you depart from.
True.
That is one. Secondly, there are a lot of constraints with the instrument flying in New Zealand. So it is important that a candidate knows the Indian instrument flying requirements. To get the instrument rating on Indian CPL, he or she needs to do 50 hours of cross country. Apart from that, 40 hours of instrument flying.
Correct.
Out of 40 hours, 20 hours can be on a synthetic simulator on ground, okay? And 20 hours or less on the synthetic simulator and 20 hours or more on the actual aircraft. So those hours need to be met with, followed by a check ride. If in case check ride cannot happen there, then that anyway for
Yeah,
conversion
yeah.
they have to do it in
Yeah.
India. But instrument flying requirement needs to be met with because I have heard a lot of, from a lot of students that they don't complete the
Correct.
instrument flying requirement there. So that is one reason you need to keep this in mind if you do flight training in New Zealand.
So when a student goes abroad for their flight training, it is very important for him or her to understand the requirements of both the licenses.
Correct.
Let's say if they are going to USA for flight training, they have to meet the FAA as well as DGCA requirement.
Correct.
They just can't go there, get the FAA CPL and come back, because here they are applying for conversion for a DGCA CPL.
Yeah.
And for that DGCA CPL, they have to meet the DGCA requirement.
Correct.
So both the countries' requirement have to be met, and there should not be issue in the
Correct.
issuance of CPL in that case.
Absolutely. Yep.
And
Nowadays, like, people ask about flight training in UAE as well. That's a new thing coming up. First of all, their flying requirements are completely different. Like, there are different kinds of program, those are said to be approved by EASA, okay? But no, approved by ICAO, not EASA, approved by ICAO. Well,
GCC.
Yeah, GCC. Well, every license that we talk about is approved by ICAO,
Yes,
is
yes,
recognized by ICAO.
Correct.
The point is, if the student wants to get Indian DGCA CPL, the convertibility of that CPL should be
feasible.
easy. Now, because why FA or why New Zealand, okay, like why US or why New Zealand, is because there is a significant overlap between the DGCA requirements and New Zealand CPL and FAA CPL. That overlap is there. GCC CPL
Completely
is very different. Like one of our friends is doing cadet pilot program from which Air Arabia or something.
Yes.
Yeah, Air Arabia. They do not do CPL. They do 40 hours of private pilot license in the US. So they have a program, okay, in US. They do 40 hours private pilot license. They come back to UAE. Now they do 200 hours on A320 simulator or 737 simulator.
Okay.
200 hours on 737 simulator.
Okay.
Then they start flying as second officer in the airline. And then as they finish their 1500 hours, half of which are counted, so around say 2000 hours or whatever that it is, because they are second officer, they are not first officer. Then they get ATPL. Now
But
after this ATPL, the job is not assured. Air Arabia has recruited way more cadets than they could at this point give jobs to. We don't know. Maybe they have expansion plans in place, so maybe that'll cater for that. But that said, Indian aviation is the largest and fastest, not largest, but is the fastest growing aviation industry in the world. At that point, I don't understand, with respect to career aspirations, why anyone would want to go, why any Indian citizen would want to go abroad and do cadet pilot program of an airline which is not in India.
Yeah, that's true. But
same
just a
goes for
question.
EFTA also. Same goes for Qatar Cadet Pilot Program also. Because you ultimately get GCC license. You don't
EFTA
get
is Emirates.
Emirates. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, about the 1500 hours, what you said, and then they get ATPL.
Yeah.
But I
GCC ATPL.
Yes, but then there, as a second officer, you don't actually touch the controls of the aircraft.
That is how the program is designed.
So
they get GCC.
As long as you don't touch the controls of the aircraft, you are not going to log those hours. If you are flying that aircraft as either a pilot flying or pilot monitoring, then only you can log those hours. As an observer, you
no,
cannot
so
log
second
those hours.
officer, I believe, is you fly the airplane.
Where to sit?
What?
Only 2 seats are there in the cockpit.
Yeah. You
operate
fly
the plane.
You operate the airplane with a safety pilot, who is sitting in the back. That is, I believe, that is how the program is.
With the safety.
So there is a trainer and a first officer sitting in the jump seat, and the trainee is sitting on the right.
Okay, you sure about this?
Yeah. Otherwise, how would they get ATPL?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure about how that program works.
Yeah. No, this is what, like he told me how it is.
Okay, I see.
And then after you get ATPL, so at around 1000 hours mark, they get an email that whether they are gonna get a job or they are not gonna get a job. If they don't get a job, then they have to convert that ATPL into Indian license. Now this program is around 1.7 to 1.8 crores. This is the program that we are talking about is Air Arabia Cadet Pilot Program. You can go and check, but don't go for it, in my opinion. Indian cadet pilot programs are awesome. Airlines in India are growing at a rapid pace, like unprecedented.
Correct.
So I get it. That aspiration is there to move to a foreign country and to see and explore and all of those things. But at this point, if you choose to switch to Gulf, you won't because of many things, but you have way better options than if you had
starting
done it, starting it
as a cadet.
there, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like-
So if talking about flying in like whether you are flying in international or you are flying in international airline,
Right.
so over a period of time, as you gain experience, we have already discussed those pathways in earlier podcast, but just to give a review, we can go over it. Like, think of starting a career as a pilot, as a junior first officer in India, because as you rightly said, India is fastest growing country in aviation market. So it is ideal to choose as an Indian citizen to start your career as a junior first officer.
If you are UAE national, that is the best airline for you. That is the go-to.
Yes. As an Indian citizen, if you think of starting, then start from junior first officer, become a first officer, and then a captain.
Correct.
Thereafter, you have many options to switch to airlines in abroad as a first officer, or even if you become a senior first officer on narrow body, then also you have an option to switch. So that is a better idea compared to starting as a cadet in the initial stage in those airlines. Yeah,
for sure. And also flight training environment in UAE, I don't know about anything about that except for these hours requirements and stuff that I have heard and learned from someone that I know. If you think of it, what is the temperature in UAE in the afternoons?
in summer.
In
Easily
summer,
45-50.
can any normal general aviation training airplane fly in that kind of weather?
It's very
Is not possible.
Yeah.
The engineers that work on Emirates engines have an igloo kind of structure that
huge igloos.
Okay, in which they work on the engines.
Air conditioning.
So pretty much flight training is not happening from 10-11 until evening. The evening
4,
sunset.
5,
Correct.
So that leaves very short period of time to finish your flight training required hours.
True.
So I understand that longing of moving to a foreign country, flying from there. Great, but select the country wisely. Okay, to conclude it, if we look at it, I think we all can agree upon India, US, New Zealand.
We are left with Canada. again.
Canada. Okay, Canada is too cold. That's it.
Yeah. Let's talk about.
But the flight training hours requirements. Okay, weather conditions one, but hours requirements. Yeah, it's pretty much like FAA. The convertibility of the license is not that difficult from Canada. Okay, that's what I'm talking.
So it meets it. So hours requirement is one thing. The other thing is weather. So I guess 6 to 8 months it's snowing in Canada. And plus now, if you have seen the political tensions between India and Canada, so it's difficult to get a visa as well.
Right.
Correct.
So so that's about Canada. But if someone is planning to go, they can go ahead. But make sure you research about the flight school, because when we went in Canada, the flight schools are almost full of students, and it keeps on snowing. So the instructor told us that when the autumn and the spring, that is the season of 4 months where most of the flying takes place.
Right.
So that's there. And then when students goes there, they are in the mindset of doing the part-time job and everything, which affects their training indirectly. They might think that they are making money, but they have gone there for pilot training. So the time which they spent in Canada, that should be utilized for flight training, not to do some part-time work.
So when it is snowing, that time they do job, and when it is time
no,
for
the
flight
shift
training,
is every
that time
day. The shift of work is every day. It's not like when it's snowing, because no matter it's snowing or not snowing, a person has to report to the flight school.
Correct.
Because let's say if the conditions get better, then the plane is ready. You just go for a flight training. If you're working somewhere, that day is gone. You are not flying that day.
But weather conditions are not quite favorable for flight training in Canada. So that is the reason why we don't really suggest
Yeah.
to do it there.
I mean, but
So-
that said, the hours requirements do have overlap. So
Correct.
doing it, I mean, if someone is choosing to go to Philippines or South Africa, rather go to than going to Philippines or South Africa, I'd say Canada is any day
Correct,
a better choice.
Absolutely.
Like that way.
Yes, agree.
Yeah.
In Philippines, we haven't. If we talk about flight training there, then in Philippines, one is there are a lot of malpractices that happen about overlogging, for example, as well as the aircrafts are also very old. They have Cessna 150s from there, so they are pretty old, and that is the one of the reason because of which the flight training seems to be cheaper. But when you would want to convert your license, or if you apply for airline job, then you'll definitely be questioned if you've done flight training in Philippines. So this is one of the country in which you should not do your flight training, which is not which is not at all recommended, because you will be asked many questions if in case it is the flight training from Philippines.
All right, let's rank it.
Yeah.
Let's have a fight and rank these, because you'll say India, I will say US. So the vote.
So
okay, let's
you
vote
can
simple.
keep US as on number one, absolutely no problem.
Let's start with number 2.
Yeah. Number one is
US.
Number 2, India.
Number 2, okay, India.
Then 3, New Zealand.
So number 2, why India?
Number 2, why India?
Yeah,
Have
cost is relatively
Cost is
lesser. Cost of
relatively-
accommodation is lesser. Flight training quality nowadays, there are good flight
Is
schools. Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah. And plus, you don't have to stress about conversion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your
Right,
hours requirement is taken care
Yeah.
of.
And if at all it takes a little bit longer to get an airline job, you can work as an instructor
Yes,
also.
that is also
That
an
is added.
advantage.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Third would be New Zealand.
Second less disadvantage of flying in India.
Okay, first disadvantage of flying in US.
None.
Cost.
Yeah.
Cost is a disadvantage.
See, it is unchallenged number one.
No, cost is a disadvantage. Cost is a drawback.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cost is
Okay, just the
And
cost.
also little bit of cost variation is
Because
is-
dollar rate keeps on fluctuating. So if the dollar rate increases, the training cost will go up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Then
So
number
that could be the disadvantage.
That is the, I'd say, only disadvantage of flying from the USA.
correct.
Okay. Second is India. India disadvantages of flying. Some small flight schools do perform malpractices, but then DGCA is there to keep a check on those.
Correct. And in those smaller flight schools, the flight time taken, the duration of flight training could also be longer. That is one.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Apart from that, if you do flight training on on a controlled aerodrome, then because of commercial traffic also the duration of the flight training can increase.
Then you need AEP also, airport
Yes.
entry permit, which takes quite some time
Yeah,
for that.
at those controlled airports.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, these
Advantages.
we have discussed.
Yeah. Let's just concise it in here. Yeah. One is you always meet the DGCA requirements precisely. Second.
Quality is now good in some good flight schools which have a decent number of aircrafts. Then third, accommodation cost is less. Accommodation and food is taken care of.
You can work as a
And-
flight instructor.
You can work as a flight
Is taken
instructor.
care of, or is also like not that expensive.
Correct,
Yeah.
is not expensive.
Because not all flight schools have their own accommodation facility, or maybe they have, maybe they don't. But there are nearby facilities, and those are relatively cheap, like not very expensive.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if you complete your flight training, and if you at that point, if there is no airline job, then you can work as an instructor also
Correct.
until you get your ATPL and then apply in airlines as a senior pilot, senior first officer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Third,
New Zealand.
Okay, New Zealand, yeah, cool. New Zealand or Canada, third.
New
I
Zealand.
think New Zealand would be
Like
a
we are,
better choice.
I mean, we are biased against Canada, but we are trying to be non-biased. That's why I'm asking this question.
I think New Zealand because if you compare the weather of Canada and New Zealand, New Zealand would have upper hand in the weather.
Right.
So the training would complete in the stipulated time, like 10 to 12 months.
I agree. It's New Zealand. Yeah.
Yes.
Because my reason for it to put it on, like, you have the third is New Zealand, you are agreeing with third is
Yes,
New
I
Zealand. My
agree.
reason for it being on third position is like above Canada is because of the truck culture in Canada.
So New Zealand is number 3.
Is
Yes,
number
yes.
3.
Above Canada.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, above Canada.
Hmm.
Because see, you can compare New Zealand and Canada, that which is better. Because even New Zealand does get cold, right? Like, why did we not put New Zealand on second and put New Zealand on third is right.
Yes,
That,
yes, yes.
yeah.
Another advantage is I would say RTR.
RTR,
You
yes.
don't have to appear RTR. If you have New Zealand CPL and New Zealand RTR, in that case,
Yes,
you
yes.
get Indian RTR permit for 5 years.
5 or 20 years depends on.
No,
what
it's
the-
5 years. If you clear it part 1, then you get it for 20 years.
Sally
you
got it
clear-
for 20 years.
Part 1, huh?
Sally got it for 20 years.
With New Zealand.
CPL, just CPL. Not,
Just CPL without clearing part 1.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. So that's why it's 5 or 20 years depends
Right.
on what you apply for.
Right. Disadvantages of flying from New Zealand.
Maybe a bit pricey. Maybe, not sure. But then the cross country, when they are flying, they have to take. They have to check before every flight that they are meeting the 100 nautical mile cross country requirement of DGCA. And for the IR, they have to make sure that they meet the IR requirements.
Correct.
So they have to be extra cautious when they are fulfilling the requirements of DGCA.
Correct.
Yeah, basically IR requirement 40 hours they have to meet. That is also a constraint. In some flight schools, they don't consider instrument flying as a part of their CPL package.
Yes.
Right.
So
Right.
that is.
One thing as disadvantage I would add is it's lower latitude, right? So days are pretty small in winters, like
Higher latitude.
lower latitude.
Higher latitude days are small. Lower latitude days are big, longer. Lower latitude is closer to 0 degree. Higher latitude is closer to pole.
Yeah, but southern higher
तो भी है.
latitude. Southern
That is
higher
also.
latitude. Yeah. So no, I just went like that. Like
Higher latitude in southern hemisphere.
Yeah, it's near the poles, right? So the days are smaller, and higher latitude in southern hemisphere, not lower latitude, because lower latitude is close to correct 0 north south is equator.
Yeah.
And then we all go all the way up to 90 north south, so that is pretty close to the poles. So days are shorter, winters are colder, so that is one thing. But again, then in summers days are longer, so that is compensated by that. Okay, so if you are going for flight training to New Zealand in winters, initially it will take pretty long time, because hours in day are daylight is for lesser period of time, and then as you move towards summer you get longer days. Initially the days are really short, to like 4 o'clock 5 o'clock it's dark, and
Correct.
then
True.
then summers it's like 10 o'clock and it's still lit. The point is, New Zealand is also very beautiful to fly, and,
You've been
all
there.
those, all those Marlborough sounds, and it's just pretty beautiful. Like, I could, matter of the fact, I decided to become a pilot in New Zealand, though I did not go to New Zealand for my flight training, but actually when I applied for L3RS, it used to be CTC. And we are the first batch to go to US from L3RS. Earlier, CTC flight training used to happen in New Zealand. So when I applied, I thought that they'll send me to the US, but no, send me to New Zealand, but they sent us to US.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Great.
that is what
Yeah.
it is. So
So
third
number 3
is New Zealand. Fourth,
Canada.
Canada. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Advantages of Canada, hours meet, disadvantages, drug culture, and too
Weather.
cold. Yeah.
Too cool.
Then fifth would be South
fifth-
Africa and sixth
fifth would
Philippines.
be- Yeah.
Advantage of Canada is even RTR.
RTR.
RTR,
RTR.
yes. Then fifth would be South Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Philippines.
But if South Africa, then go to a good flight school. That
Yeah.
is, yeah.
Mm.
And then sixth is don't go. Right?
Philippines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or don't go.
Yeah. Sixth. Yeah. I mean,
Sixth is
seriously.
don't go option.
Don't
Yeah.
go. Yeah. Sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
And why not fly from Europe is because it's expensive. The second is the flight training hour requirements are different for Europe and India. They have MPL. You don't actually MPL, right?
Yeah, multi
Multi-curricular.
pilot license.
Yeah. And then the conversion is not as straightforward. That is the reason. And then again, there are many papers to clear.
14 papers.
14
to clear.
papers to clear.
At each stage.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
PPL, CPL, ATP.
Correct. Actually, most Europeans also choose to fly in the US. Like we have had a podcast with Captain Joe. He himself has flown from the US because it's way faster. It's relatively inexpensive. Yeah, that's it. I don't have much to say.
Thank you for watching this podcast until the end. And if you are someone who is willing to start his flight training soon, then make sure you start with your DGCA ground school first.
CNTAA.
Yes, obviously. And then you start with your flight training. Thank you and have a great day.
Bye.